The October sun cast long shadows across the military base as families gathered for the promotion ceremony. Among the crowd stood Marcus Hayes, a man whose weathered hands and quiet demeanor spoke of years lived in silence. He wore a simple jacket despite the warmth, hands clasped behind his back as he watched the formation of officers prepare for inspection. He had come only to see his son, Lieutenant David Hayes, receive his captain's bars. Nothing more. Marcus preferred the shadows, preferred to remain unseen. Before we continue with this incredible story, I want to know, which country are you watching from right now? Drop your country's name in the comments below. David had begged him to come. For years, Marcus had declined every invitation to military events, every ceremony, every celebration. The memories were too heavy, too sharp. But this time, seeing the hope in his son's eyes, he couldn't refuse. So he stood at the edge of the crowd, behind the rows of proud parents and excited children, hoping to blend into the background as he always did. This was David's day, David's moment. And Marcus wanted nothing more than to witness it from a distance where the past couldn't reach him. General Catherine Morrison stepped onto the platform, her uniform crisp and decorated with ribbons that told their own stories of service and sacrifice. She began calling names, each officer stepping forward to receive their new rank with pride. Marcus watched with quiet pride as David's turn approached. His son stood tall, shoulders back, every inch the officer Marcus had never been able to be after everything that happened. The crowd applauded as each name was called, families cheering for their loved ones. David stepped forward, saluted with precision, and the general pinned the captain's bars to his uniform. Marcus felt his chest tighten with emotion he rarely allowed himself to feel anymore. His son had done it. Despite growing up with a father who rarely spoke, who disappeared into his woodworking shop for hours, who flinched at fireworks and avoided crowds, David had become this remarkable man. Marcus blinked back tears he hadn't shed in decades. As the ceremony continued, General Morrison's eyes swept the crowd during a brief pause between promotions. She was known for her attention to detail, for seeing what others missed, for recognizing the invisible threads that connected people. Her gaze landed on Marcus and something made her look twice. Perhaps it was the way he stood, the military bearing that never quite leaves a soldier. Perhaps it was the deliberate way he positioned himself at the edge, seeking invisibility. Or perhaps it was something else entirely, something fate had orchestrated. Then the wind picked up, lifting the edge of Marcus's jacket, revealing his forearm for just a moment. The general's expression changed instantly. She stopped mid-sentence, her eyes fixed on the mark she'd glimpsed. Without explanation, she stepped down from the platform and walked directly toward Marcus, her stride purposeful and urgent. If you're feeling the tension right now, hit that like button because you won't believe what this tattoo revealed. Trust me, you need to hear this. The crowd quieted, confused by this departure from protocol. David's face went pale as he watched the general approach his father with such intensity. Marcus felt the familiar panic rising in his chest, the urge to flee that had controlled so much of his life. But he forced himself to stay, forced himself to meet the general's eyes as she drew closer. "Excuse me, sir," General Morrison said, her voice carrying authority but also something softer, something almost vulnerable. "May I see your arm?" Marcus hesitated. The tattoo was something he'd hidden for decades, a reminder of things he'd tried desperately to forget. Slowly, with trembling hands that betrayed his inner turmoil, he rolled up his sleeve. There, faded but unmistakable, was the insignia of the 75th Ranger Regiment along with coordinates and a date, October 15th, 1993. The general's eyes widened with recognition. She stepped closer, reading the numbers carefully. "Mogadishu," she whispered. Then louder, her voice shaking. "You were there, at the Battle of Mogadishu." Marcus nodded once, his jaw tight. He didn't trust himself to speak. 32 years had passed since that day, but the memories were as fresh as yesterday. The chaos, the screams, the impossible choice he'd made that had haunted him ever since. "These coordinates," the general said, pointing to the tattoo with a trembling finger. "This is where Sergeant James Morrison's helicopter went down." Marcus felt the world tilt beneath him. He searched the general's face and saw it now, the resemblance he should have noticed immediately. The same determined jaw, the same fierce eyes. "James was your—" He couldn't finish the sentence. "My brother," she said, her voice breaking slightly despite her military composure. "He was my older brother, my hero." The crowd was completely silent now, sensing they were witnessing something profound, something sacred. David moved closer, having never known this part of his father's history, never understanding the weight his father had carried alone. Marcus's voice, unused to speaking of these things, came out rough and broken. I was in the convoy. We were supposed to extract to the coast, but I heard his mayday call. I made my driver turn back. We weren't supposed to. It wasn't our mission. It wasn't our assignment. He paused, decades of guilt flooding through him like a dam breaking. We got to the crash site. I pulled 4 men out before the situation became untenable. James was one of them. I carried him 3 blocks under fire. Got him to the extraction point. Tears streamed down General Morrison's face, her professional demeanor crumbling. You saved my brother's life. He came home to us because of you. He got to meet his daughter. He walked me down the aisle at my wedding. He taught his little girl to ride a bike. He lived 15 more years before cancer took him. She reached out and gripped Marcus's hand with both of hers. We never knew who pulled him out that day. He was unconscious. He spent his whole life wondering, trying to find the soldier who saved him. He never stopped looking. Marcus felt something break open inside him, a dam he'd built from shame and survivor's guilt and decades of silence. I lost 3 men from my own squad that day. I'd always believed I made the wrong choice, that I should have stayed with my team, that I abandoned them. You saved my brother, the general said firmly, her voice strong despite the tears. You gave our family 15 more years with him. You gave his daughter a father. You gave me my brother back. That was not the wrong choice. Do you understand me? That was the bravest choice anyone could make. She turned to address the entire assembly, her voice ringing across the grounds. This man is a hero. Sergeant Marcus Hayes acted with extraordinary courage under fire, saving multiple lives at great personal risk. He deserves our gratitude and respect. She removed one of her own ribbons, the silver star that gleamed in the afternoon sun, and pinned it to Marcus's civilian jacket with care. This belonged to James. He received it for his service that day. He would want you to have it. He would want you to know what you meant to us. David rushed forward, embracing his father for the first time in years without feeling that wall between them, that invisible barrier Marcus had built. Marcus held his son, really held him, and finally allowed himself to believe that perhaps he had been enough. Perhaps he had always been enough. Perhaps the choice he'd made 32 years ago was the right one after all. The ceremony concluded with applause that seemed to shake the very ground beneath their feet, but Marcus hardly heard it. He was too busy looking at his son's proud face, too busy feeling the weight of decades lifting from his shoulders like chains falling away. He had come just to watch, to remain invisible, to hide in the shadows as he always had. Instead, he had been seen, truly seen, for the first time in 32 years. If this story touched your heart the way it touched mine, please subscribe to this channel. These are the stories that remind us that healing is possible, that our past doesn't define us, and that sometimes the recognition we've been waiting for comes when we least expect it. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that their sacrifices matter, that their choices meant something. Drop a comment telling me what moved you most about Marcus's journey, and let me know if you have a veteran in your life who deserves recognition. And remember, every veteran carries stories we may never know, burdens we cannot see. Thank you for being here, for listening, and I'll see you in the next story.